Hey all you cats and chicks out there, welcome back to Control Players Unite. I'm your host, Dr. Red. Today, we will be reviewing all of the free retreat and gusting cards in the current standard format. When you want to take your active Pokemon out of the active spot, you must retreat it. There are two ways to retreat, hard and soft. To hard retreat a Pokemon, one views the retreat cost represented as colorless energy and discards the amount of energy shown from the active Pokemon to move it to the bench. Soft retreat isn't so much reused, but it's when you use a switching card like Switch or Switch Out to get the Pokemon out of the active. Free retreat cards, however, are those without a retreat cost at all, thus permitting a player to hard retreat out of the active spot without discarding an energy. Gusting cards are those permitting one to bring up an opponent's Pokemon from the bench into the active spot. Sometimes the opponent gets to choose the Pokemon, sometimes not. These are particularly devastating cards because they not only disrupt the opponent, forcing one to find a way to retreat, they can also take immediate knockouts if the gusted Pokemon has low HP. Some cards here will have an elaboration, others not, so let's begin. First you have Mothim. This card is never used, it's just here for the sake of completion, as most of these cards are. Nimble, which you could use with low kicks, of course, because it's the basic form. Scyther, which is often obviously paired with Scizor, because hello, it's the basic type. This one's actually used because you can attach a basic grass energy from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon, so if you have something that has colorless energy, for its attack cost, that's also helpful. Superior V-Star has been used in some rogue decks to combat Charizard EX. Regal Blender lets you move any amount of energy from your Pokemon to the other Pokemon any way you like, so that's really helpful. Venomoth, not the item lock one. This has Miracle Powder. Flip a coin if heads. Choose a special condition for your opponent to be affected by. Yanmega, another Yanmega. Entei, if this Pokemon has any fire energy attached, it has no retreat cost. Magby, Scorching Heater, puts 6 damage counters if it's hit with damage from your opponent's Pokemon. Moltres, no retreat cost if a fire energy is attached. Rapidash, because it's a really fast horse, of course. Articuno, if this Pokemon has any water energy attached, it has no retreat cost. Garchomp EX, Hydrolander lets you put 3 basic fighting energy cards from your discard pile to your bench Pokemon any way you like. It's used with all sorts of different meme decks. Mantike has never been used as boon healing, heal 120 damage from your bench Pokemon. Starmie is sometimes used as a supporting attacker in Palkia V-Star decks. Elekid is sometimes used as a supporting attacker in Serena EX decks for just taking a quick KO with 30 damage. Emolga can be useful for control decks wanting to search for an item card, like say Counter Catcher or Prime Catcher. Jolteon, this was a standard in the Zoroark box deck because it could easily take a KO on an EX or a V. Kilowattrel, pretty much useless for most people. This is the form, this is the other Kilowattrel that's used in the United Wings deck. Rhydon EX, not the kind with the ability to get 2 Pokemon onto the bench, so never used. Palmot, this is a fun meme deck because it does 230 damage. That's one-shotting pretty much every basic out there, if not every basic. There might be an exception somewhere. Palmot EX, 220 damage, discarding 2 lightning energy, fine. Pikadash, if this Pokemon has any energy attached, it has no retreat cost. Pikachu EX, same deal, no retreat cost, just kind of there. Regieleki VMAX, this is a staple in Miraidon EX decks because of the Transistor ability. Your basic lightning Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. There's a Shinx. There's a Luxray. Explosiveness ability. If this Pokemon's in your hand and you're setting up, you could put it face down as you're active. I've seen Japanese decks that put 4 of these in just to increase the chances of getting one, and when they don't work, it's good Ultra Ball fodder. Zapdos EX had its moment in the spotlight for about a week when it was released. If this Pokemon has any lightning energy attached, it has no retreat cost. It was used in Miraidon EX decks. Zeraora is a staple in Miraidon EX decks for its Battle Claw ability, doing 30 more damage if your opponent's active is an evolution Pokemon. Zeraora V-Star just sees meme play, doesn't see anything important as far as competition. Clefable is here for the sake of completion. Lunar Zone, all your Pokemon that have Psychic Energy attached have no retreat cost. This might come into play with its Wondrous Moon attack, where you can move any amount of Psychic Energy from your Pokemon to others any way you like, because the new Clefable, the baby Clefable coming out in the next set, has a Metronome attack wherein you can use any of your opponent's attacks, similar to Mew EX. Cleffa has the famous Grasping Jaw attack, draw until you have 7 in your hand. Flittle, obviously the base form of Espathra EX. This one's nice because of free retreat. There's Espathra, baby Espathra, free retreat, of course. Another baby Espathra. Ghastly, further drop damage counter to one of your opponent's active. Gengar has Poltergeist. Opponent reveals their hand, 50 damage for each trainer card, similar to Bayonet EX. There's the famous Mew EX with the restart draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. It's a good pivot because that's the genome hacking attack where you can use one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks as your own. Mime Jr. is hilariously fun, except your opponent, you get to use an attack from one of your opponent's Pokemon, but they get to choose the attack. It's just nice for 30 HP, free attack, not a bad deal. Ribombee is seeing some play in Charizard EX decks with Plentiful Pollen. During your next turn, if the defending Pokemon is KO'd, you take 2 more prizes. Starmie, there it is, right there, yeah. Togekiss, I saw this in a Japanese control deck. Draw cards so you have 8 in your hand at the end of your turn. Whimsicott, not doing anything. Xatu, never saw any play. Bonsly, your opponent's Pokemon can be confused, which is good for disruption, doesn't do anything else. Morpeko has a retreat cost of 1, but its ability in a Hungry Hurry says if this Pokemon has no energy, it has no retreat cost. Wonderful. Zubat, not doing anything. Golbat, not doing anything. Crobat, this is sometimes played with Serena EX decks. Critical Bite does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. If one of your opponent's Pokemon is KO'd, you take 2 additional prizes. The other Crobat is a card lock deck with Echoing Madness. You can lock your opponent out of using supporter or item cards. Hasn't seen any play though because it's a stage 2, I would imagine. But the free retreat is enticing. Dragonite, this is here for completion. Your Pokemon in play have no retreat cost. I've never seen it even on the ladder. Garchomp V, this saw some play to do because it's 220 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So assuming your opponent doesn't have Manaphy, it's a free 2-prize KO pretty much on V Pokemon when they were more in play than they are now. Noivern, Radiant Hunt, that's a unique attack, automatically KOing a Radiant Pokemon. Hasn't seen any play though. Noivern EX, outrageously popular. At least it was getting outrageously popular with control decks for its Covert Flight. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done by basic Pokemon. For your treat is obviously a plus, which is what this video is about. We got Aerodactyl, Devolution Ray. If your opponent's active Pokemon is an evolved Pokemon, devolve it by putting the highest stage into your opponent's hand. We have Devolution Technical Machine now for that, but again, for your treat, obviously. Chatot, nothing going on. Cyclizar, nothing going on. Dunsparce, nothing going on other than you're going to use its evolved form Dunsparce to just go away and draw 3. Fearow has Beat Catch. This could be used in the form of a control deck. Search your deck for 3 cards, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. It could be quite devastating. Lanoon, not doing anything. Pidgeotto, not doing anything except that it negates a Devolution Technical Machine if you're evolving into Pidgeot EX. The other Pidgeot, nobody's using, just ignore it. I mean, I'm not trying to sound mean, but really, like, if you want to try win, I'm not saying don't use it for a meme deck, but you know, if you're trying to win something, just ignore it. Pidgeot EX, this is the golden card of free retreats because it also has the quick search ability where you can get anything out of your deck and just for free. Don't even worry about it. Bluster Wind isn't bad to discard a stadium and play as well. Eradicate, this saw some fun meme play with Miss Magus and a few other damage counter spreading cards. Second Bite, 30 damage for each damage counter in your opponent's active. Tandemaus, not doing anything. Mouse Hold EX, kind of fun if you can get it to work. The Solidarity ability, you put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon, your opponent's active Pokemon for each Tandemaus, Mouse Hold EX into play. It's alright, but not doing anything else. Tranquill, not doing anything. Unfezant is an energy disruption card. Put 2 energy cards attached to your opponent's active into their hand. This can be standalone, or it can also be paired with Gengar EX, as is often the case now. Now that Gengar EX is out. Now we're into the trainers. We got Beach Cart. Retreat cost of each basic Pokemon is 1 less. Paradise Resort. You can only get this if you play at the World Championships 2023. The retreat cost of each Psyduck in play is 1 less. Not sure why they did that, but they did. Big Air Balloon. Stage 2 Pokemon have no retreat cost. That's fantastic. I've only ever really seen it with Venusaur EX decks, though. Future Booster Energy Capsule. Any future card can use this. It gets it has no retreat cost and does 20 more damage with attacks. Rescue Board. The retreat cost of this Pokemon is 1 colorless less, but it's free if it has 30 HP or less. And then we're back to the beginning. Let's go through the gusting cards. You got Butterfree. Switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench where your opponent chooses. This is a fun meme deck. I've seen it work with Torterra as like a kind of side attacker supporter. But otherwise, I haven't really seen it do too well on its own. Florigato, Magic Whip, switch out your opponent's active. Gloom, switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active, but you get to choose who it is. Leafeon V-Star, the Ivy-Star ability, switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Nuzleaf, have your opponent switch in another one of their Pokemon. Shiftry, you may have your opponent switch their active with one of their bench. Tarantula, flip a coin, switch heads if your opponent's bench, switch your opponent's active Pokemon with one on their bench. Venusaur, Loopy Lasso, this is fun. Once during your turn, flip a coin of heads. You can switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active, but the new one is now asleep and poisoned. This was used with the Jinx card that got an auto KO if the Pokemon was asleep. Zarude, switch one, do 20 damage to the new Pokemon. Lampend, switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active and then do 30. Iron Bundle has the Hyper Blower. You discard this from your bench and your opponent picks one of the new Pokemon. Electro, switch in one of your opponent's bench with the active. If you do, this attack does 60 damage to the new active Pokemon. I forgot to mention this is good in control decks and in Chien-Pao. It's all over the place in that regard. And if heads for this Electros, your opponent's Pokemon is now paralyzed. Magnezone V. I think this is an underused, underrated card, but that's just me. It might be because of the 210 HP. Switching one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active. This attack does 40 damage to the new active. That's really good for getting rid of pesky Manaphies. Shanks, Big Roar. Just have your opponent switch in one from their bench. Baltoy, same thing. Except that you switch it with one of your own bench. You switch this one with one of your bench as well. Chimecho, you switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and their active Pokemon is now asleep. That's nice. Clefable has Follow Me, switch in one of your opponent's benched. Drowsy, same thing. Switched in one of your opponent's bench, but the Pokemon is now asleep. Jinx is basically a boss's orders, but the Pokemon is now confused. Mawile V-Star, Star Rondo, during your turn if this Pokemon's on your bench, switch it in, and if you do the same with one of your opponent's benched. Rhyhorn, switch out your active to the bench. And then your opponent's active, You have Rockruff, flip a coin, if head, switch your opponent's bench. You can see a theme here, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing really special going on here. Bonsly has Intimidating Howl, which does that on an ability as well. Mighty Yenna, switch out your opponent's active, fine. Spiritomb, taunt, switch in your opponent's bench Pokemon. Weavile, Assaulting Hunt. Once during your turn, when this Pokemon moves from your bench to the active, you may switch in one of your opponent's benched basic Pokemon to the active. Magneton, same thing, switch out the active. Magnezone, switch out the active. Mawile, switch out the active and do 30 damage to the new active. Probopass, switch out one of your opponent's benched and do 40 damage to the new one. Suingudra, your opponent switches in their new Pokemon with one of their benched. Lechonk, switch out your opponent's active to the bench. Meowth, flip a coin if heads, switch from the bench to the active. Rookity, switch out your opponent's active to the bench. Tornadus, Sudden Cyclone, same thing as a Bostiff, except that you... wait, hold on, sorry. Yeah, have your opponent switch... you choose it. That wording always throws me off a bit, but yeah, it sounds like you get to choose it. on the that card used to see some play back in the day, but not so much anymore. Whismur, switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench. Zangoose, this deck does 30 to the new one. Same thing. This, ladies and gentlemen, right here, now that we're in the trainers, this is a reprint. It is classic. It is devastating. It is counter catcher. It is in every control box and even a few aggro decks that you can think of. You use this card if you're behind on prizes. Switch in one of your opponent's benched Pokemon to the active. It is fantastic. You do not need to waste any time trying to get ahead or stalling. Pokemon catcher is the same thing, but you have to flip a coin, whereas counter catcher is guaranteed. Just got to be behind on prizes. Prime catcher, you don't even have to flip a coin. Switch in one of your opponent's bench to the active. You get to choose, and you get to put in one of your own active Pokemon to the bench. It's extremely powerful. It's absolutely worth it if you can have something on your bench to pivot out from the active if the Pokemon you want in your active spot is already there when you do the switching. Absolutely worth considering for every deck. Every deck out there is considering this one, not just control. Boss's orders, just like Prime Catcher, switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active, just straight up. Don't have to worry about all those little basic cards or the abilities we showed you just now. Just straight up put the Pokemon in the active that you want. And it doesn't even matter if you are behind on prizes or not. Just do what you want to do. Devastating card. Pretty much every deck has a copy of this in it. Erika's Invitation is a staple for Block, Snorlax, and Pidgeot EX control. Your opponent reveals their hand. You put a basic Pokemon you find there onto your opponent's bench, and then you can switch it into the active. Rhyme, draw 3, switch out your opponent's active to the bench, but your opponent chooses. Serena, you can use this as a drawing card, discarding 3 from your hand and drawing until you have 5. Or you can switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon V with their active. Chantal, flip a coin. If heads, switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon to the active. If tails, switch your active Pokemon to the bench. The reason why this is not used in place of Boss's Orders is because Boss's Orders is a guarantee. And then we're back to the beginning. Thank you everybody for watching. Hope you learned something. Please have a good rest of your day. Please take care of yourselves and God bless you.